Hello, and welcome back to Jane Dou Reads. I am your host, Jane Dou, here for your reading needs. Now, I fixed the audio issue. Woo! I fixed it. I did it. It was a user error. I did not calibrate my microphone correctly. I didn't at all. I didn't calibrate it correctly, so I'm happy I fixed it, and you guys now have good audio. Yeah. So, I do have permission from the lovely QueenStarrOfTheUniverse to post their fic here on YouTube. It is a 2-part fanfic in a series called Clone Chronicles, which you now have a playlist since I now have a chapter 2. Woo! Second thing second. I don't know how you guys want me to continue doing the chapter summaries. So currently, chapter 2 has no main summary. I'm not going to do a summary every time. Unless you guys say, hey, I would love a summary each time you read. I will. Let's get onto the tags. On the screen for you guys today are the tags. Same as last time. The ones that are bolded are the ones that I think are the most important. However, I want you to take your time, pause the screen, read through them because each tag is equally important as the last one. I want you guys to understand what you are getting into in this fic. So with that being said, let's get on to the fic. This is Adventures of a Screwed Up Clone by QueenStarrOfTheUniverse. Chapter 2. Treasure Hunting. It takes about 4 seconds to escape custody cop. She left Danny in her hot car to grab a coffee or something from a cafe with a stern look to sit tight. Danny's not even fazed. She immediately climbs to the front seat and gets out the driver's side, since the back doors predictably have the child's safety locks engaged. The car starts wailing, but Danny keeps on her merry way. She doesn't even bother running. What's the lady going to do? Chase her? Honestly, it would be funny if she tried. Danny might even have to lengthen her stride a little bit. Danny slips into the shadows of a nearby alley, ready for the next adventure. She's already been set back by several hours. First things first, she needs to establish some familiarity with the city. Time to look for the city library. As the sun climbs past the smog and starts heating up the city, more people begin pouring out into the streets. Danny sticks to the alleys for a while, but once enough people are out, she can safely join the throng without standing out. She doesn't have any money for a subway pass, so she wanders, aiming for older buildings and hoping it will eventually lead her to the city center. After about 2 hours, Danny's getting hot and tired. She's hungry too, but again, she doesn't have any money. For money, she needs to find the library, which she planned on doing by wandering the city all night. She breaks around noon, asking for a few people for directions. She's ignored by the first 2 she asks, given false information by the one after that, and finally gets the right directions from a nice homeless guy and his ratty but very cheerful dog. She pets the dog. It deserves good pets. When she's done with that important task, she thanks the man profusely and finds the library another half-hour later. That misdirection from the third person she asked took her a dozen blocks in the wrong direction. The library is a grand old thing, probably built in the mid-20th century. It has pillars stretching up to a dome ceiling, streaked with either rust or dirt. There are brass lions standing guard on either side of the large glass double doors. It's so old the library doesn't even have a title, just a metal plaque out on the sidewalk that proclaims Bloodhaven City Library. Danny opens one of the sets of doors to the side of the grand entrance, slipping past the circulation desk to enter the dimly lit room stacked to the ceiling with books, manuscripts, magazines, and newspapers. The room is set circularly, with a second floor leading to the higher section of shelves. The middle is wide and open, a tacky chandelier hanging from the top of the dome. It's not enough to adequately light the place, so there's several floor and table lamps spread out on the long study tables. Danny loves it. She roams the stacks, looking for city history. From what she's learned in her previous travels, the oldest library, usually the city's main library building, has all the good stuff. Building blueprints, old newspapers, first edition diaries, maps, that kind of thing. She finds the right section in a sad, neglected corner off the main room. It's the size of a typical office, cramped with 3 old bookshelves, a small desk, and a single creaky chair. The lamp buzzes when she turns it on. Danny first looks for and finds their section of maps. She loves Maps. She needs to buy one of her own of the city, but first, like everything else, she needs money for them. For that, she needs a cemetery. In every city, at least a few ghosts are hanging around that took a secret stash of money or valuables with them to their graves. That's usually where she gets her funds. Though it never takes long before she ends up donating it or hoarding it in her room at the keep. It's such a hassle to carry around cash. It's not a perfect system. In fact, it kind of sucks. But Danny can't use a credit card since she needs to open a bank account, but she doesn't, exist. And they kind of need proof that you do and stuff. She just ran out of her last funds to get here. Could she have planned it better? Yeah. Would she plan it better next time? Probably not. She lays out the oldest map she can find, a weathered roll of parchment from 1982 with a few spots of water damage along the edge. It's protected with some kind of clear vinyl cover, making it hard to make out the faint pencil lines behind it, but she manages. The oldest cemetery is just a couple blocks from her, which is where she wants to go first, but she also mentally marks the clock tower, fairgrounds, and old insane asylum. Those would be her next stops, once she gets some food on her. On cue, her stomach grumbles its complaint. She pats it absent-mindedly, cracking open an old book of history about the city written in the 70s. If she doesn't find some serious lore here, she's going to be so disappointed. City history is mostly dry, political stuff, but Danny is well practiced at skimming over it to focus on the people and places behind it. Bloodhaven was established in 1912. It was mostly a whaling town with a few passenger docks for foreign visitors who used the city as a layover on their trips from Europe to various American cities. Casinos were built to increase population so that the city could become a commercial trading hub, but it mostly failed due to a high rate of crime and, several urban legends that led to mysterious and unexplained deaths. She couldn't find the details of the urban legends in that book, so she switches books a couple of times until she finds a spiral-bound collections of news articles about some of them. Let's see. Fire at the Flanders Hotel from 1923. An oceanfront manor suffered a severe fire that killed the entire family but didn't damage the foundations. The article mentions a possible renovation in later years. Danny flips through to find the article about said renovation, which reported that the building was turned into a grand hotel but suffered serious setbacks throughout the building process. One worker was maimed when a support beam fell on him from above. 2 additional fires broke out but were quickly contained. There was an attached police report that suggested criminal vandalism. Really, though, Danny was focused on the details about spontaneously locking doors, disembodied laughter, and reported visages of a young woman in mirrors and windows. There was definitely a ghost there, but Danny has to put it aside for later when she has money to stay at that hotel. Ooh. One article is a report of a fisherman supposedly getting attacked by a 40-foot monster with a dog's head and a snake's body. She'll hit that one too, but she doesn't think there'll be much money to collect in that one. She finds a few more interesting places she mentally marks for later, but her attention fully settles on an article that alludes of a still unfound safe full of cash and bonds from a gangster in New York, rumored to be buried in the city limits for some kind of gang deal that went south and ended with the gangster shot in the head and face down in the canal. Score. She does a quick, glitchy search on one of the ancient computers in the main room to see if it has been found. It hasn't, but it had been searched for by dozens of different organizations. After a quick verification of where she's going and how she's going to get there, Danny heads back out into the heat of midday, determined to find some buried treasure. Let me guess. This is why they shot you. The ghost crackles from beside her, gleeful by his deception. Underneath Danny's mud-stained hands lays an open safe, rusted through and dented on one side, surrounded by dirt. She's been searching for the treasure for the whole afternoon. After digging for an hour with a borrowed shovel from the cemetery, she finally unearthed the safe. She had tried the code and Anaru, the gangster, gave her 7 times before it finally clicked open, only to reveal a single dollar bill. No, they never found it. The ghost laughs with pure glee, kicking his feet in the air like an excited child. I bet they knew anyway, Danny grumbles. She still pockets the dollar bill, since it's a cool souvenir at least. Now, what am I supposed to use for food? The crackles peter out and the ghost regards her with a searching glaze. Oh, that's what you wanted? I'm sorry, princess. He looks genuinely apologetic. Here, I got a smaller stash somewhere in the city. Smaller than $1? Danny deadpans. No, sing-songs the dead man, booping her nose. He's way too cheerful for a ghost. in Danny's opinion. It's a smaller container. I think it has, a few 20s in there. It was meant for emergencies. Danny eyes him critically. On one hand, he's already tricked her once. On the other hand, it's not like she has a better lead. It was either this or stealing, which Danny doesn't really like doing since it usually puts a target on her back. Oh, and because stealing is wrong. Obviously. Despite her skepticism that the gangster was actually going to lead her to cash, Danny doesn't have a better way of getting food right now. Once she stops being so hangry, she can focus on exploring more in the city and possibly finding other treasures. Luckily, Anara wasn't lying a second time. When she scraped out a small tin from some loose bricks in an abandoned building, she opened it to reveal 3 $20 bills, a box of very old cigarettes, and a comb. Danny raises an eyebrow at the latter, but given Anaru's immaculate hairstyle and mustache, she supposes the gangster considered proper grooming essential, even in an emergency. Danny is quick to find a deli and order herself a family-sized bag of chicken, 2 pasta sides, and a box of biscuits. She also purchases a big water bottle that she plans on refilling for the rest of her stay here. After collecting all her goodies, she wanders to the cemetery where she found Amaro's unmarked grave, and hadn't that been a pain to track down, and sit under a willow tree to eat her well-deserved meal. After a few minutes of shoveling food in her mouth, Danny asks, "Do you actually have treasure?" She swirls her plastic fork in the mac and cheese thoughtfully. It's actually pretty decent, nice and creamy with a hint of crunch where the breadcrumbs were sprinkled on top. Solid 6 out of 10. Anaro is drifting around the tree, watching his incorporeal hand move through the swaying branches. "Yeah, but it's in the Catskills," he replies. "I've heard people looking for it, so I buried another here to throw 'em off." Danny rolls her eyes. "Will you show me where it is?" "Of course not," the ghost scoffs. "Do you know how amusing it is that no one has found it yet? I've seen folks walk right over it without a clue." Danny hums. Unsurprised, not every ghost tells her where their treasure is. It's fun to look for it anyways. "Tell me a story," she says instead. "How did you become a gangster?" The next hour, she polishes off her meal while she listens to Anaro tell her about his deadbeat dad, schizophrenic mom, and his younger sister Bonnie with Down syndrome whom he wanted to provide for. She didn't make it to adulthood, and when she passed, Anaro admitted he lost all sense of morality and became a cruel man. He said he was glad he was put down when he was. He didn't want any more sins to atone for. He just wanted to rest in peace with his sister. The details how someone is punished or rewarded for their deeds in life isn't something Danny is privy to. Despite her royal status, she's glad it seems fair. Anaro even told her he had personally apologized to some of his victims and was making amends. "Being dead is so funny, isn't it?" he ponders as the sun began to set. "Everything's so clear. You feel everything so profoundly. I can't imagine life now, especially without the perspective I've gained." Danny listens to everything he has to say. People are so fascinating. It's so bizarre that every single person that has ever lived has a completely unique experience, with complex thoughts, feelings, and relationships. She wants to know it all. She wants to feel it all. "Thank you for telling me your story," Danny says when Anaro trails off, looking exhausted from his time in the mortal realm. "Tell Bonnie I said hi." "Will do, princess," he replies. "Thank you for the vacation. I'm sure she'll love to hear all about it." With that, Danny releases her summons on him, and he gives a jaunty wave before his soul is drawn back to his own personal afterlife. She stretches out, feeling sleepy from her comfortably full belly and the drain of the summons. The young teen tosses her garbage in the nearby trash can and leaves Anaro's grave with a small handful of dandelions she found. Bonnie's favorite, which certainly has some ghostly encouragement to grow so abundantly nearby, and the packet of the 1920 cigarettes. She knows they received her gifts through the presence of a crisp breeze that smells faintly of cologne and mint. Ghosts have strange connections to their graves, but Danny has no idea whether they get their gifts or they just know she left them. Danny returns to the willow tree and stretches out in the grass. It's peaceful here, with the branches swaying in the wind and the occasional stars peeking out between smog and leaves. She wonders if Danny is stargazing, or even visiting a distant galaxy like he does every so often. Safe among her brother's subjects, Danny drifts off to sleep with the rest of the dead. "Where's the social worker?" Pretty Cop asks, breaking Danny from her trance. She startles a bit at his sudden appearance and begins folding up the city map. His eyes glimmer in amusement as he rocks off his cop car and comes closer to her. It's been a couple days since she first arrived in Bloodhaven, and she was just starting to familiarize herself with how the streets are laid out. She was planning on finding the lake with the supposed dog monster, but got distracted by the discovery of ghost tours. Usually, they're only scheduled around Halloween, but this city has year-round ghost tours. She just had been trying to figure out where they were so she could find out the fee.
I threw her off the pier,
Danny blurts.
She became a buoy.
The cop smirks. That's not very nice.
Which part, the throwing or the insult to her spray tan?
Ah, you were referring to her spray tan. Pretty Cop seems highly amused, and Danny doesn't move to run since he doesn't look interested in arresting her or calling backup. How long do you escaped her?
Half a block in 2 minutes, Danny replies with a proud grin. She left me in the car to get coffee.
In August? In the afternoon? His concern is touching, but annoying in its arrogance.
This surprises you. Why?
Danny flaps her map at him.
Don't tell me you thought she was a model employee.
He huffs out an irritated breath. No, I just thought with the new policies... No, never mind. I'll have to call City Hall again. He visibly shakes off the topic, then smiles more openly at her. What have you been doing?
Treasure hunting, Danny replies. But it turns out it's not as lucrative as it is in video games.
That earns her a chuckle. Is that a treasure map, then? Danny glances at her city map.
No, it's just the standard map you get at the visitor center. Treasure is almost never marked by map. It's not supposed to be found, you know.
Another laugh. He really is a bit too cheerful. Must be covering up trauma or something. People who smile the brightest have overcome their darkest or something like that. What about the copper scrolls?
Oh, I've seen those. They're in the museum in Jordan.
She's even got her own paper copy of the scroll, printed just to look just like the real thing, with a shiny copper foil and everything. It's one of her favorites. You've been to Jordan? Pretty Cop asks in obvious surprise. Was it just to see the copper scrolls? Danny scoffs.
Nah, but it was definitely pretty cool. Say, I should go to the Bloodhaven museums. I haven't even thought of that. The ghost tours will have to wait.
The young cop looks ready to tease her or further question her plans, but before he can do that either, there's a blast of static from his radio and a near-comprehensible list of numbers and words. Grayson listens with intent, then responds with a firm. 10-4, Grayson en route. He looks at her apologetically. Sorry, I gotta run. Have fun at the museum. Oh, here. He digs into his belt and hands her a 20. Danny accepts it with confusion, but he's already climbing into a squad car. For the entrance fee. He starts the engine and flicks on the lights, peeling out of the area in 2 seconds flat. Huh. Danny likes him even more now. She pockets the 20 and reopens her map, looking for the museum. It's much easier to find than the ghost tour place, and she heads out in its directions only a couple minutes later. Unfortunately, after an hour and a half of strolling half-hearted exhibits with zero interactive elements and poorly written plaques about whaling, Danny is thoroughly disappointed in Bloodhaven. Why bother with the museum if you're going to make it boring? She only has $2 left of the entrance fee from the 20 Pretty Cop gave her, but she forks over a few more of her own dollars for a sea chart and a gift from the gift shop. At least the map is pretty cool, despite the lackluster museum. Time to find the ghost tour place? Yeah, Danny thinks it is. It better be more interesting than the museum, not that it should be all that difficult. It's pushing 6 in the evening by the time Danny makes it to the ghost tour place, and they have only one tour on weekdays that is already sold out. She'll have to come back in a couple of days. Tired from wandering, Danny collapses on a stone bench nearby and takes out her sea chart. It has some silvery filigree around the edges which augments the shape of the waves. Danny admires it in the golden light, debating whether she should add it to her favorites shelf back at the keep. There is a pounding of shoes on concrete that gets progressively louder as a runner approaches her, and Danny looks up in interest since it's weird to see anyone working out during rush hour, and in the heat of the day. It's Pretty Cop, in plain clothes and a messenger bag crossing over his broad chest. He breaks out in a huge smile when he sees her and increases his speed until he reaches the top of the steps where Danny's bench is. I'm so glad I caught you, he says, panting a little. I stopped by the museum, but the gift shop guy said you left an hour ago. So I hope you were keeping your earlier plan and went to the ghost tours. He's out of breath, though. Not nearly as much as he should be if he jogged here from the museum, which is about 20 minutes, which is easily 5 or 6 kilometers away.
Hey.
The smile doesn't dim. In fact, it grows. Are you going on tour?
They're sold out,
Danny answers, still confused. Why are you chasing me down? Pretty Cop smoothly removes his messenger bag and sits on the bench next to her. I wanted to ask if I could buy you dinner. I'm a little young for you, Danny observes skeptically. The man shakes his head and waves his arm around violently, but he's laughing. No, not like that. You remind me of my brothers, is all. Danny continued to eye him with suspicion, but he looked sincere enough. Usually, bad people give off bad vibes, their souls leaking with evil intentions into the space around them. She can only sense positive and energetic feelings from Pretty Cop, as limited as her emotional sense is compared to, say, Jazz or Sam's.
Do you stalk your brothers too?
Absolutely, he responds without missing a beat. They like to pretend they don't like spending time with me and always try to run away.
All of them?
That's kind of hilarious. This guy is probably more embarrassing to have as a brother than a helicopter mom. Yep, except for my newest one. He's an angel.
How many do you have?
Danny asks in amusement. 4, he replies, and 2 sisters.
That's a big family,
Danny states, despite it being obvious. And you are the oldest.
Yeah, that tracks.
Somehow, the idea of this sunny man being a younger sibling doesn't sit right. He has big brother energy. Did you like the museum?
It sucked, Danny deadpans. It was barely a museum. It felt more like a storage shed with occasional labels. I'll never get that time back.
She holds up her map to him.
I got this cool map, though.
His eyes readjust on the map and scan the legend. That's a really pretty map.
Right?
Danny admires it again, tracking how the light bounces off the silvery lines.
I'm trying to decide whether I should keep it with my favorites or not. I mean, the measurements are off and they're not in the metric system, which is a huge downside, but overall it's accurate from what I can tell.
You like maps, then? Danny slaps her hand down and looks at him with offense.
I love maps, thank you very much.
He holds up his hands in appeasement with an amused grin. Of course, my mistake. How do you usually read one of these ones?
Nautical charts?
A nod.
Well, you see this legend?
Another nod.
Well, it's mostly useless, so ignore it. Except for the scaling info. This whole area is just open water. There shouldn't be a need for ports and islands or whatever. It's these numbers on the edge that matter. They show you latitude and longitude. You got your basic compass rose here, but the real issue is positioning yourself, since if you're in the water, there won't be any landmarks. That's where a sextant comes in handy. She rambles on for a few minutes about how sextants work with the map. The whole time, Grayson pays rapt attention, even asking clarifying questions and pointing at things on the map for her to explain. You said the measurements were off. How do you determine that? They put the shore here, but look, the shading here indicates deep water, but it shouldn't be this close to the land if they're trying to show international waters. This indicates 20 kilometers when it should be closer to 40.
If you just adjusted this line here by a couple millimeters, you could fix that issue. He points to the scaling bar. Danny squints at the map.
Then the land dimensions would be off.
Not if you just take this landmark right here and move the darker shade further inland. He taps what Danny guesses is supposed to be a lighthouse. She's inclined to trust Grayson's opinion more on the specifics, given he lives in the city. The shore will look a little weird, but let's be honest, with the way tides change year to year, that won't be really a technical issue. Danny stares at the map, then at her companion, scrutinizing him with a now dying light. What? He asks, rubbing his face almost self-consciously. Is there something on my face?
You can buy me dinner,
Danny decides. He looks caught off guard, but it quickly melts into a wide smile.
But I get to choose where.
Grayson nods eagerly. They end up eating seafood and discussing which type of historic boat they would sail if they were pirates. Danny chooses a brigantine. Grayson decides on a sloop. Danny orders lobster just to be expensive, but she doesn't like it all that much and steals Grayson's seafood platter instead. It's delicious. Thank you so much for listening to Chapter 2 of Adventures of a Screwed Up Clone by Queenstar of the Universe. I had such a great time recording this video, and I can't wait to start working on Chapter 3 for you guys. That one will be posted next week, Monday, so be ready and looking out for that video when that comes out, because I'm so excited for it. I'm ready for more Danny and Dick interactions. I'm ready for more Danny and Map interactions. I'm just so ready for more sassy Danny. You don't understand. I read this fic overnight one time, and I was just like, I must get more. I must read more. So, if I can't tell you to go read it you need to just go check it out. It's such a good fic, and Queen Star of the Universe deserves all the love and support for it. So, that's I'm going to end this here because I've been talking to myself for the last hour trying to record this outro. I I've done so many takes. You don't understand. But this is the last one, I promised you. I promise you. So, I am Jane Doe, and I'll see you guys in our next reading session.